Hello, my zebras and spoonies. Thanks for coming and hanging out with me today. I am glad that you are here. Today, I'm going to be talking about medical ethics, specifically, do no harm. Of all the Hippocratic writings, the oath, in spite of its shortness, is perhaps the most interesting to the general reader and also to the modern medical person. The idea of not doing the patient harm is within the oath, but the phrase do no harm is not. Whatever its origin, it is a landmark in the ethics of medicine. It is a declaration that the purpose of medical knowledge is solely for healing. The oath is the oldest known written work that speaks to biomedical ethics. And the idea that it expresses is still at the center of all of biomedical ethics today. Do no harm. This seems so easy and so readily apparent. So, what is there to discuss? So, in the world of medicine, there are many layers to the idea of not hurting people, and defining what harm is complex and convoluted. And it's part of why ethical questions can be difficult to answer in the world of medicine, and really in just life in general. The question of what is harm has a lot of answers, and some philosophers, such as Epicurus, think harm is necessarily experiential. So that means that you need to experience something in order for it to cause you harm. And according to this view, money secretly being stolen from your bank account or a symptom free cancer only harms the victim if you become aware of it. In this view, ignorance really is bliss because you can't be harmed by something if you aren't aware of it. Other philosophers disagree with this view. Imagine if your friends were paid actors pretending. Despite their behavior, your friends might not actually even like you. If you believe in non experiential harms, you might say that you're being harmed by having these false friends, even if you never know the truth about their friendship for hire. And if this is the case, then you can be harmed by the cancer that you never knew you had, or the affair you never discovered, or the theft from the bank account, that money that you never missed. Is harm a physical thing, or does it include emotional, mental, and spiritual harms? Do they also fall under this umbrella of doing no harm? Is it a doctor's responsibility to ensure that their interactions with their patients are ones that are also not harmful to the non physical self of the patient? So, the general thought on this is that yes, the doctor shouldn't be causing their patients any kind of harm, even the emotional, mental, or spiritual kinds of harm. But this is a pretty big area of gray. It is also an area fraught with problems, especially when people are engaging with each other across different cultures where the social expectations aren't necessarily going to be the same. There are many topics that doctors need to discuss with their patients that are going to be emotionally difficult. Conversations about serious diagnoses, a poor prognosis, end of life care, a futile treatment. All these discussions are ones that are going to be emotionally difficult and often will cause the patient pain, even when those conversations are handled with care and with kindness. There is certainly no expectations that these types of important conversations will be avoided in an effort to avoid emotional harm. Yet there is an expectation that those conversations happen with compassion. So there has to be a balance. And this is where oftentimes in medicine we look at the pros and the cons, the harm versus the benefit. And obviously the benefit of having these difficult conversations outweighs the potential for emotional harm. So then we get into the idea of non-maleficence. This is derived from the maxim do no harm. It is one of the principal precepts of bioethics that all Healthcare students are taught in school and is a fundamental principle throughout the world. Another way to state it is that given an existing problem, it may be better to do nothing than to risk causing more harm than causing more good. It reminds us as healthcare providers that we need to consider the possible harms that an intervention can cause. And it is something that's invoked when we're debating the use of an intervention that carries an obvious risk of harm, and we're less certain about that intervention's possible benefits, or the benefits are statistically unlikely, or just really aren't statistically supported. But non malefice is not where this idea of doing no harm ends, because there are also clearly times that doing nothing can cause harm. And this is where we get into medical neglect, which is defined as failure of a healthcare provider or a caregiver to observe due care and diligence in performing services or delivering medicine and other products so as to avoid harming a patient. This can be intentional or accidental, but the result is the same. Something should have been done that wasn't done, and harm was caused. A person needed care that was not given. And because that care was not provided, harm occurred. This is medical malpractice, or the improper, unskilled, or negligent treatment of a patient. Most would agree that the first and most obvious implication of do no harm is the absence of violence. A doctor can't just punch his patient in the face. Nope. Doesn't matter how much of a jerk the patient is, no punching. But what obligation is there to the environment? Is a doctor responsible for keeping his location of practice safe? And how far does this reach? What expectation in America do we have? So the answer is that we as healthcare providers are required to keep our locations of practice safe. It is our duty to prevent violence. That means that we can't allow guns and knives to be carried about, and we can't allow people to hurt themselves or others while they're on our property. We have to do something about it. But what about on a societal level? Do doctors owe something to keeping the community safe? There's some that feel that they do. As providers of care, they hold an important role in the community. Community leadership and education is an expectation, even though it's not a legal requirement. But does this fall under the idea of do no harm? If people don't know what services are available, they're not going to use them, and they're going to have poor outcomes. Harm can result. There are some who feel that it's the doctor's duty to be an advocate within the political arena. Their patients are often too sick to fight for their own rights. Does this make it a doctor's obligation then? Some feel that it is. There has been a strong push for doctors to unite in finding solutions for better distribution of healthcare. All right, so why does any of this ethical stuff matter to us as chronic illness patients? So medical ethics is a guiding force when providers are making clinical decisions. And understanding how clinical decisions regarding your care are being made can be very helpful. The medical system is a complex and difficult beastie to understand, and we as patients are often left feeling that we're in the dark. There's rarely time for doctors to explain the rationales behind the decisions that they're making, let alone any of the medical ethics that are driving those decisions. The more that we understand how medical decisions are being made, the better that we can engage with those conversations. It allows us to ask better informed decisions. It allows us a foundation to use when formulating our thoughts about our medical care. And this can be especially helpful when we are feeling that we are not getting the health care that we need, and we need a platform in which to advocate for ourselves. Medical ethics can really help us voice those concerns. So thanks for coming and spending some time with me. I hope that you all find peace and wellness. Until we talk again, you guys take care of yourselves.